In 1095, the world trembled with a single cry, Deus Vult, God wills it. Peasants, princes, monks, and mercenaries all sewed the cross upon their tunics and vowed to march for Jerusalem. Some sought forgiveness, others sought fortune, but few could imagine the storms of fire, famine, betrayal, and blood that awaited them. This is not just the tale of conquest, but of faith twisted and sharpened into a sword. This is the First Crusade. Part 1. The World Before the Crusade. The First Crusade cannot be understood without stepping into the broken world of the 11th century. Christendom was a patchwork of kingdoms and fiefdoms, fractured and fragile. France itself was less a kingdom than a chessboard of quarreling lords. The Holy Roman Empire stretched wide but was divided by endless disputes between emperors and popes. England had only recently been conquered by the Normans, while Spain reeled from wars against the Moors. The papacy, once humbled by secular kings, now fought to reassert supremacy over Christendom. To the east, Byzantium, the heir of Rome, stood as both a jewel and a ruin. Its capital, Constantinople, was still unmatched. Domes gleaming with mosaics, the Hagia Sophia towering over markets where Greek, Latin, Arabic, and Armenian tongues all mingled. But behind the grandeur was fragility. Since the disastrous defeat at Manzikert, 1071, much of Anatolia, the empire's lifeblood, had been lost to the Seljuk Turks. These nomadic horsemen, fierce and swift, had carved their sultanate of Rum upon Byzantine soil. When Emperor Alexios I Komnenos ascended the throne in 1081, he inherited a state beset by enemies. Turks in the east, Normans under Robert Guiscard pressing from the west, raiders from the north, and treachery within his own court. Alexios was no soldier king in the classical sense, but he was a survivor, clever, patient, and shrewd. He realized that Byzantium could not reclaim Anatolia alone. Meanwhile, the Latin West was restless. Its warrior aristocracy was a powder keg, young knights with no inheritance, nobles locked in endless feuds, brigands and mercenaries roaming unchecked. The church had tried to restrain them with the peace of God and truce of God, demanding they lay down arms against fellow Christians. But violence remained the only currency they understood. It was in this world that Pope Urban II, a Cluniac reformer, saw both opportunity and necessity. Urban longed to strengthen papal power, unite Latin Christendom under Rome, and redirect Europe's violence outward. When envoys from Alexios begged for aid against the Turks, Urban seized the chance. At the Council of Clermont in November 1095, before bishops, nobles, and peasants, he delivered a sermon that would change history. He spoke of Eastern Christians suffering under Muslim rule, of holy places profaned, of pilgrims harassed, of Jerusalem in chains. He promised not land alone, but salvation itself. Those who took the cross would have their sins forgiven. He painted the crusade as both pilgrimage and holy war. The response was electric. The crowd roared, Deus Vult! Deus Vult! God wills it! The words spread like wildfire across Europe. Men carved crosses into their tunics with their knives, swearing themselves to the cause. The stage was set for an eruption unlike anything the medieval world had seen. Part 2, the People's Crusade. But it was not the princes who first marched. It was the people. Peasants, craftsmen, minor knights, women, children, even the elderly. Thousands upon thousands took up crude weapons and set out eastward, convinced God would part seas and rain manna as he once had for Israel. Their leaders were no kings, but zealots and preachers. At their head was Peter the Hermit, a gaunt monk with a wild gaze, barefoot, riding a donkey, proclaiming visions from heaven. Behind him marched Walter Sans Avoir, Walter the Penniless, leading men who carried little more than faith and fury. Their zeal quickly turned to horror. Passing through the Rhineland, many crusaders turned their fervor upon Europe's Jews. Inflamed by the idea that they were avenging Christ, mobs massacred Jewish communities in Worms, Mainz, Cologne, and beyond. Entire families were slaughtered, synagogues burned. Some Jews chose martyrdom, killing their own children rather than see them baptized by force. The first blood of the crusade was not Muslim, it was Jewish. By the time Peter's horde staggered to Constantinople, it was half-starved, half-mad, and wholly undisciplined. Emperor Alexios, horrified, ferried them quickly across the Bosporus into Anatolia. There they met the Seljuks. At Sivato, October 1096, Sultan Kilij Arslan unleashed his cavalry upon the rabble. The peasants broke instantly. Arrows shredded them, swords cut them down, and tens of thousands were slaughtered. The fields were littered with corpses, the sea choked with the drowned. Only a handful survived. The People's Crusade ended in ruin, a prelude written in fire and blood. Part 3, the Prince's Crusade. The real crusade was only just beginning. Where the peasants failed, the lords would march. They came from every corner of Europe. Godfrey of Bouillon, Duke of Lower Lorraine, austere and devout, accompanied by his brother Baldwin, hungry for power. Raymond IV of Toulouse, called the Stout, one of the wealthiest nobles of France, driven as much by faith as ambition. Bohemond of Taranto, son of the Norman conqueror Robert Guiscard, tall, cunning, and hungry for a realm of his own. At his side rode his fiery nephew, Tancred, young, daring, and romanticized even by Muslim chroniclers. Robert Curthose of Normandy, eldest son of William the Conqueror and Robert of Flanders, brave and charismatic. Each lord brought knights, men-at-arms, squires, and camp followers, tens of thousands in all. They converged upon Constantinople in uneasy waves. Alexios, wary, demanded oaths that captured Byzantine lands be returned to the empire. Many swore reluctantly, already dreaming of their own crowns. The alliance was fragile, held together by faith and convenience. Their first trial came at Nicaea, May 1097. For weeks, they battered its walls with ladders and engines, while Byzantine ships blocked the lake. Yet when the city fell, Alexios's envoys negotiated a secret surrender, shutting crusaders out of the plunder. Tension flared. Already east and west eyed each other with suspicion. Deeper into Anatolia they marched, into the sun-scorched wilderness. At Dorylaeum, July 1097, Bohemond's vanguard was ambushed by the Seljuks. Arrows fell like rain. Crusaders huddled in a desperate circle, shields locked, horses shrieking in panic. For hours they endured until dust rose on the horizon. Reinforcements thundered in. Godfrey, Raymond, Robert, crashing into the Turkish flank. The Seljuks broke, retreating into the hills. Victory opened the road, but it came at a price. Heat, hunger, and disease stalked them. Many knights ate their horses, many peasants perished on the road. Yet still they marched on. Part 4, the Siege of Antioch. By October 1097, they reached Antioch, once a jewel of the East, now a fortress of the Turks. Its walls rose high, its towers bristled with guards. To take Antioch was to unlock the road to Jerusalem. The siege dragged on for 8 grueling months. Winter brought hunger, disease, and despair. Crusaders gnawed on leather, boiled weeds for soup, slaughtered horses for meat. Desertion spread. Even nobles doubted. Yet within the walls, defenders starved too. The city became a contest of endurance. Then Bohemond, ever the schemer, saw his chance. He struck a deal with Firuz, a discontented guard willing to betray his tower. In the dead of night, June 1098, Crusaders climbed ladders, slit throats, and flung the gates wide. Antioch fell, but triumph soured instantly. A vast Muslim relief army under Kerboga of Mosul arrived and encircled Antioch, trapping the Crusaders inside the very city they had taken. Starvation tightened its grip. Men spoke of despair, of abandoning the cause. Then came a miracle, or a manipulation. A visionary named Peter Bartholomew declared that the Holy Lance, the very spear that pierced Christ's side, lay buried beneath a church. Digging commenced, and lo, a lance head was found. Whether relic or fraud, it ignited a flame of belief. Soldiers marched out gaunt, half dead, but aflame with zeal. On June 28, 1098, against all odds, they charged Kerboga's vastly superior army. Panic rippled through Muslim ranks. The Crusaders shattered them. Antioch was secured, not just by steel, but by faith turned into weapon. Part 5, the road to Jerusalem. After Antioch, the Crusaders fractured. Baldwin seized Edessa, carving out the First Crusader state. Others pressed south. Their march was a gauntlet of deserts and ambushes, thirst and hunger stalking them at every step. Yet in June 1099, after years of hardship, they saw it. Jerusalem, the city of their dreams, radiant beneath the blazing sun. It was held by the Fatimids of Egypt, well defended and provisioned. The Crusaders had little wood, few supplies, and dwindling numbers. Yet desperation forged resolve. They stripped forests, dragged timber for siege towers, and built engines of war under scorching heat. Priests led processions barefoot, carrying relics, imploring heaven's favor. On July 15, 1099, the final assault began. Godfrey's tower reached the walls. He himself led the charge. After fierce struggle, a breach opened. Crusaders poured in, blades flashing. What followed was carnage. Chroniclers wrote that the streets ran ankle-deep in blood, that Muslims and Jews alike were cut down without mercy. The Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque became scenes of slaughter. Those who survived were enslaved. Only when the killing ended did Crusaders fall to their knees in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, weeping in triumph, their hands still wet with blood. Godfrey refused a royal crown, declaring himself advocate of the Holy Sepulchre, but Jerusalem was his to command. Part 6, Aftermath and Legacy. The First Crusade ended in victory beyond all expectation. 4 states were born: the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the Principality of Antioch, the County of Edessa, and the County of Tripoli. Outposts of Latin Christendom carved into the heart of the East. For Europe, it was a miracle, proof that God favored them. For Byzantium, it was a mixed blessing. Their allies turned into rival lords on former imperial soil. For the Muslim world, it was catastrophe, a wound that would fester for generations. The First Crusade began as a cry for aid. It became a storm of conquest, massacre, and empire building. It set the stage for 2 centuries of war between cross and crescent. The holy had been won, but at a cost written in fire, hunger, and oceans of blood. The Crusaders believed they had saved Jerusalem. In truth, they had only lit the fuse of endless war.